Oh, Dennis, you got a brace of medals there. What were they for?
Yes, well that one was for the Malayan campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I was there from 1958 to 1961.
Mm-hmm.
That one was for South Arabia, Aden. I was there from 64 and 65. And the one on the end is what they call the Pingat Jasa medal. That was issued to British servicemen who'd served in Malaya by the Malayan government. And in actual fact, wasn't issued to me until 2012. What happened was they became independent in 1957.
Yeah.
And 50 years after independence, in 2007, they requested of the British government would they issue that medal to British servicemen who had served there during their first 10 years of independence and helped to keep the peace. And it took 5 years for Parliament to agree it and for the Queen to ratify it.
And why was there disagreement about it, or?
No, it's just that normally the British Army do not wear medals issued by foreign governments.
And did they have to change the law to do it, or was it just?
They would have had to do it by Act of Parliament, yeah, to agree to that. Normally, if you're issued a medal by a grateful foreign government, it's worn on the right breast.
Mm.
Things like the Croix de Guerre that people would have gotten during World War II, that sort of medal. But normally, only British medals are worn on the left breast.
So you were a professional soldier?
I was, yes. I joined in 53 and came out in 67.
So you had 14 years of it?
Yeah, just short of the 15.
And what did you work with after that?
Well, during the army I trained as a vehicle mechanic, so initially I worked as a vehicle mechanic when I came out on commercial vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I moved to a different company and went to sales, car sales, became sales manager. But then when the lovely Margaret Thatcher became PM and put VAT through the roof, it was damn difficult to sell cars.
Mm.
So I went then onto newspaper advertising.
Okay.
And I did that until I came here in 1988.
You're here since 88, yeah?
Yes, I came to live in Westport in 88.
Mm.
Prior to that, I'd just been a holiday maker.
And when you went to Malaysia, was there a war on there at that time?
There was, the emergency was on. That had started in 1948.
And what was that war about? Was it independence, or was it?
It was basically the communists
Communists.
trying to take over the government.
Hmm. And were there many British soldiers out there at that time?
There were quite a few Brits, plus Australians, New Zealanders, Gurkhas, and the Malayan forces themselves.
And was it a United Nations thing, or was it?
No, it was purely a Commonwealth.
A Commonwealth
thing,
event, yeah.
Yeah.
And how long did it go on for?
12 years in total.
12 years. And there many people dying at that time?
Oh, quite a few,
Quite a few.
especially initially between, say, 1948 and 53, quite a few people killed.
And what kind of warfare was it? Was it guerrilla, or was it?
It was, yeah.
Or was it
all
battles or
jungle warfare.
jungles? Yeah.
And we had to do silly things like build new towns, for instance, because the communists would come in, intimidate the locals into providing them with food, etc. So to prevent that, we built new towns, compounds where the locals moved into, and we even had people in the area. If you saw a lady coming by with shopping and she had to tin stuff, you punctured the tin with a bayonet, because that way around they couldn't put it into the jungle for these people to pick up, because as soon as you laid it on the ground, it was full of ants.
Okay. And they were compounds to protect the people. They'd stay inside them, would
They
they?
were really, yeah, and to prevent the communists from intimidating and getting into them.
And were you supported by were the local supportive? They were.
They were.
They were,
Most
yeah.
of them were, yeah.
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 And were they? Did you see much action? Were there?
Well, a fair amount here. What used to happen, I was actually attached to an artillery unit at the time. So they would send a battery of field guns up up country, somewhere like that, and
Yeah.
4.2-inch mortars. And they were supported by people like myself who were in the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers.
Mm.
I was there to repair their vehicles, and other REME personnel would look after the guns and that sort of stuff. So we would go up country, as we call it. The furthest north I went was up to a place called Star, which had a little story attached to it much later on. As you probably know, I had that triple bypass in 2004, and as the doctors were doing their rounds in the hospital, one of the ladies at the back, dressed up in all her costume, I asked her where she was from, and she said she was from Malaysia. I asked her whereabouts, and she said, "Oh, you wouldn't know." She said, "Up in the state of Kedah." And I said, "Oh, I was up there." I said, "In 1957, whatever." I said, "A little place called Star." And her eyes came out on stalks, and she said, "Well, that was my hometown."
Your ears perked
And
up
I
then,
said,
yeah,
I
yeah.
said, "Well, I don't think I'm your grandfather." I said, "I couldn't beat too many locals up there."
So did you ever come under attack?
Yes, and the only time we did come under attack, in one sense, I missed it all. I was asleep.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was so shattered I didn't even wake up while it was going on.
Well, did you ever have to shoot back at anybody?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You didn't know if you hit anybody or not. You were
You
shooting.
wouldn't know if you hit anybody.
You'd be shooting in a direction. You would.
Yeah.
Would you be shooting blindly? You would.
Sorry?
Would you shoot blindly, or would you be?
Well, you hopefully picked a target, but you don't always know if you hit it.
Mm.
But
And did many of your colleagues get shot? On your side, did many get?
No. We did lose people, but it was usually through road accidents and that sort of thing, or accidents with the equipment.
But not actually shot.
Not to the best of my knowledge. I don't think we had anyone shot.
And when did you go to Aden then?
That would have been in 1964.
And what was your role there?
Well, much the
Same
same.
thing, yeah.
I was in a workshop at that time, but we were supporting, of course, the infantry and whatever else there. We were actually stationed at a place called Little Aden, that's about sort of 12 miles away from the main city of Aden.
Mm.
But again, that was quite hairy because you didn't know who was who. The enemy didn't wear uniforms, of course. It was guerrilla warfare again against it.
And did you come under attack there?
Not personally,
Not your group.
no. But
Were there many of your guys killed out there?
again, there were quite a few until just as I left. It was all over the news at the time. A Scottish regiment moved in there, and their colonel was known as Mad Mick, and he did all sorts of things to clear the situation up. But I'd left by that time. I'd moved across to Kenya.
With the army?
Yes, what had happened was a vacancy had come up for someone to be in charge of the little workshop in what was a holiday retreat for personnel stationed in Aden. Single soldiers could get a week's holiday there, families could get 2 weeks, and it was basically just a holiday camp. We had little glass-bottom boats that were going out to the coral reefs.
In Kenya?
Yes. And I should think everyone in the army put in for the posting and my name came out of their hat. So that was good, yeah. Took minibuses into Savo National Park and Serengeti, places like that.
And how did you spend the evenings?
Usually with 1 or 2 pints.
And were there any?
Yeah, there's a little putting green there as well, and all we had to do basically was to set the Africans to work in the morning, and then we could spend half a day on the putting green or wherever.
And were there girlfriends and ladies out there?
They were, yeah.
Natives?
Hardly girlfriends as such,
No.
acquaintances.
Acquaintances, yeah. Were they locals, yeah?
Yes, quite a few, yeah.
Okay. And where else did you go to then?
I was in Canada and in the States. When we
With the army, yeah?
Yes. We were issued with a new field gun called a 105 howitzer, and they wanted us to go cold weather trials on that. So they shipped us to Canada in Manitoba, November time of the year. Very mild, -54,
Hmm.
and we were in tents.
Intense.
But whilst there,
Would you be cold in the tent now? Would you feel it?
no, not really, because we had these Canadian Army personnel and what you call Eskimos actually teaching us how to survive in cold weather.
Okay, yeah.
So that was quite interesting. But whilst there, the camp was visited by some American generals, and when they realised they had British soldiers there, they got permission from the Ministry of Defence for us to go down to visit what they said was our sister regiment in America. We were the 2nd Field Regiment, and in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, was the second American Artillery Regiment. And so we went down there. We were there for about 6 weeks, and that would have been temperature-wise +70. These are all Fahrenheit temperatures. So we'd gone from -54 to +70.
Big change.
And after 6 weeks, we flew back to Gander, Newfoundland, about -40. So, of course, your bladder didn't know what it was doing
Yeah.
for a few weeks. But oddly enough, we returned then to England, to Colchester, and we were doing exercises down on Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire in the January, February time of the year, and half the regiment went down with frostbite.
And what year would that be about?
That would have been 1962.
62. And was it very
Just
cold?
because of the different climate. In Canada, although they say -54, it's very, very dry.
Hmm.
And providing you have the right equipment on, you don't feel the cold so much.
Hmm.
In the UK, like Ireland, as you know, January, February, you can put on 10 layers of clothing, but eventually the damp will go through.
Oh, yeah. So you had a good time in the army, yeah?
I did. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it, yeah. And how did you end up in Westport?
Well,
Where were you born in England?
In 66, where was I born? I was born in Sheffield,
Sheffield, okay, yeah.
which was then in the West Riding of Yorkshire. But again, the wonderful Mrs. Thatcher, or Baroness Thatcher, changed it to South Yorkshire
Mm-hmm.
when they did all the electoral boundary changes. But yes, Sheffield, and that was just prior to World War II. So of course, obviously survived the Blitz. Went to the Sheffield Grammar School, joined the army. I came out of the army in 67, quite honestly, when the Northern Troubles were starting to really flare up, so I didn't want to get involved.
Did you have an Irish connection at the time?
I didn't at that time, no, but then I met my wife when she was working in England, and she first of all wrote home, I think, told her grandparents that she was going out with an Englishman, which didn't go down too well.
Yeah.
But then, of course, he wasn't only English, he was in the British Army.
Did you tell them
and was
that?
Protestant.
Did you tell them that?
Yeah. But anyhow, when I first came here, and I just fell in love with the place.
Yeah. And how did the parents take it when you
well,
came here?
actually, because they could see that I was short-haired and didn't have rings through my nose or anything, I was accepted.
No, yeah.
Yeah. And it was quite good. I met, obviously, there's some Paddy Hoban, and the first night here, he took me for a spin in the car between Westport and Louisburg. And it was a beautiful September evening, I can remember it now. And because it was so lovely, I just turned around and said, well, one day I'd love to come and live here, you know. And it basically took 20 years between 68, that was 1968, 68 and 88. And then in October 88, we came to live here permanently.
Of course, Paddy would have a bit of a military background as well
Well,
himself.
yes, we got on
He was in the FCA, wasn't he?
He
Yeah.
was FCA,
FCA, yeah.
and he finished up as commandant of the local
Mm.
FCA. So yeah, that was the talking point initially. And
And what do you like about Westport?
I just generally liked the layout of the town. I thought it looked nice. The sun helped a lot. I mean, when we drove along that coastline between here and Louisburg and looked out across Clew Bay, and
Fabulous.
I hadn't tried Guinness until then, but it had a kind of attraction.
You got fond of it. Not too fond of it.
Not too fond
No,
of it now.
developed taste.
No, I was never over fond, but I just
Yeah.
liked that. And I was lucky when I came to live here because I had been a visitor to the town over 20 years, so I knew an awful lot of people in the town. They knew me, and so it was easy to settle. I wasn't a complete stranger. And the drinking hall in those days used to be, as we call it, Stuff Walsh's on Mill Street. Teddy Walsh and Stephen, his father. And yeah, we all got on quite well. The crowd in there was nice.
Who were the drinkers there at that time?
Well, we had Kevin Coughlin, Jack Hoey, Mikey Duffy, quite a lot of them. Des Hetrich had been there.
Pork business.
Tony O'Grady.
On newspaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, quite a few actually.
So that was kind of the centre of activity, by the sound of it.
Yeah, and great crack on a Sunday nights in actual fact, because Sunday night seemed to be the quiz night in one sense. Somebody would shout to one of the lads, "Oh, can you name the Kildare team from 1952?" And they'd just rattle them off, things like that. And yeah, they were very knowledgeable on the sport and the sort of little cracks used to get up to.
Bit of banter.
Yes, yeah.